Hello and welcome to Gaming. I'm next up the comes, of course, Justin. And what a week it has been. Well, what a day it has been, honestly. It's been a pretty dry week, all things considered. I was genuinely going to go into this show originally going to be sitting here talking about Nintendo and waving my finger over at Nintendo and being like, Nintendo bad. Well, not so much Nintendo bad, more like Switch sales bad. Let's talk about that. But I thought, you know what? We've been doing a lot of, I wouldn't say depressing shows, but just kind of like critique shows recently. So I thought we'd do something just kind of fun and out of pocket recently. You probably know me if you've been watching this show for a while. Know I play gacha games, one of them being Genshin. And Genshin just released a massive Lunar 4, if I'm reading my numerals correctly. It's been a while since I've studied Roman numerals. I think we're on 4 at this point. Someone's going to correct me in the comment section. Go, no, that's 5, stupid. But let's just pretend it's 4 if it is. But anyway, so Luna 4 came out, the special program. And yeah, let's talk about it because there's actually some really interesting stuff to talk about it in the case of that. And let's just rip it off the band-aid and just go straight into it and just by saying the Traveler gets a costume change for once, which is interesting. I say that's interesting because if you know Hoyo and specifically the Genshin Impact team, we actually pressed them a while back, like way back in roundabout Inazuma and stuff like that on like I think it was Reddit or something, and people were like, "Is the Traveler ever going to get a costume or some kind of outfit or anything like that?" Like, nah, we're never giving the Traveler an outfit. Well, here we are all these years later, and we finally get an outfit change, and it's for free, no less too, which is interesting. So that's something. Apparently, we get it for free after we complete the whole new Archon quest that's coming with Lunar 4, which is going to be the big boss fight with the Doctor, which he looks nutty, not gonna lie. He looks absolutely nutty as a boss. That's going to be absolutely interesting. I can also see people just raging at him for everything that happened in Lunar 3. So that'll be interesting to see happen. No talking how we're going to bring Columbina back, though, so... But she's definitely coming back, because in Genshin, so far, we haven't had characters that are playable that are dead, so she is a character that's coming in the first half of the Lunar 4, so she clearly comes back somehow. No idea how, though, so that's a thing. On the topic of the Traveler, though, we also get a buff, apparently. Not only are we going to get a new outfit, but we're also going to get a whole new swathe of buffs for the Traveler that apparently are just going to mean every element we've resonated with in the past is just going to give a flat boost to the Traveler stats. Like, I think Pyro's was like 20% damage, Geo's like 20% defense buff, and yada yada yada. Like a whole bunch of them, I can't remember. And also whole special attack. We're not sure if those special attacks are element based, like are they going to be slightly different based on the elements that you're running at the moment, or are they all going to be kind of the same, just with different elemental affinities? Not sure yet. We do know that there's also, we can see the buff already for Cryo, what that's going to be, and that's going to be, of course, the spiciest one, and that's going to be 20% crit damage, or crit chance. I think it was crit damage, though. Which, that's the spiciest one of all. Of course, they put that behind Cryo, which we don't have yet, so that's kind of mean, but hey, I mean, we're getting a buff, right? Everyone's saying the Traveler is not a viable unit. Maybe this will help. I main Traveler, so I'll probably play him one way or the other, but, you know, for those who say the Traveler is viable, maybe this will help with the discussion. So yeah, that's interesting. All of this stuff apparently is going to be linked to, like I said, what's going to happen at the end of Lunar 4, where apparently we're going to learn more about the Traveler's origins, and that's going to unlock a whole new swath of stuff for the Traveler. So, me being a lore junkie, I'm also really excited for that, because we have no flipping idea what happened with the Traveler's origins beyond the fact that they are an alien. That's about it. It's one of those weird ones where the Traveler knows their origins. It's not like we're dealing with a Withering Wave situation where the character has amnesia and they just have no idea what they were prior to the events of the story. The Traveler remembers what they are. They know that they're not from Teyvat. They know they're from beyond Teyvat, but the actual specifics are a little foggy. So it'll be interesting to see what that more relation is. Maybe it's linked to Columbina as well. So, which on the topic of Columbina, we actually get to see her played out as a character. She's definitely sounding like a must pull because apparently she can just give lunar reactions to everybody in the team, which I just realized now as I'm saying all of this. Justin's probably sitting there going, "I have no fucking idea what this means," but just trust me,
Pulling
Justin.
is
It is
pulling.
very
Pulling is pulling.
pulling is pulling. He plays unless he knows.
I know.
But yeah, so apparently she can just give the ability to anyone in the team who is in her Luna Zone, which is the thing she triggers when she pops her ultimate. That just makes any reaction within its boundaries a lunar reaction. So yeah, if you don't have a character that can do lunar reactions, so anyone who's not from Nodcry, just put her on the team and everyone can do lunar reactions now, which is a flat buff, I guess, to everyone. I originally heard lunar buffs weren't that impressive. I even heard some people said they're actually subpar compared to the normal buffs, so maybe not. That said, we are seeing that there's also a Geo reaction coming, lunar buff, so revitalized Geo maybe? Geo's always been kind of in the game. The tanks in Genshin have always been underappreciated because in this game there's really no point to them. But hey, maybe we're going to see more Geo action, so that's something. And also apparently, if you have her, I think if you have her on the team or just in general, if your teammates die while in the bounds of Nodcry, she just instantly reses them with like 25% health. So, yeah, she's also an auto-reviver. Not a healer, but just an auto-revive mechanic. Just it's tied to having her around, which, hey, that's nice. So, definitely going to be some interesting stuff with Columbina. She definitely has a pretty juicy kit. Mostly a support kit by the looks of it, though might be some DPS potential in there. But still, definitely a must pull. Then we go to the horse girl. I say the horse girl because I genuinely can't remember her name. The moon horse adeptus. If you know, you know. I can't remember, so I'm just gonna pretend you do. If you do, if you just nod along. If you don't, also just nod along. It's not important to remember her name at this point. But yeah, she's coming with the Lunar New Year. We're gonna get another lantern right. More of her connection to the moon. Zhongli's coming back. Apparently they're old friends. Flipping course, they're old friends. Zhongli knows everybody. So that'll be interesting to see the Lantern Rite. Apparently those will be more possibly moon lore tied to Lantern Rite, so that'll be interesting to see how that happens. You also gotta remember that the Lantern Rite probably takes place yeah, it takes place presumably canonically after the events of Lunar 4, so it'll probably reference maybe anything that happens in Lunar 4, so that'll be interesting to see. Because we do know there's going to be apparently an eclipse that happens in Teyvat, which, considering the sky in Teyvat's fake, eclipses shouldn't happen normally, because it's all kind of a projection, so to speak, so
an eclipse
that's going to be...
is a big event, so you know.
Yeah, it's like, if the sky
big.
Yeah, it's like, if this, like, there's a reason there's no shooting stars in Teyvat, or eclipses in Teyvat, and yada yada yada, because the sky is just a giant projection, more or less, so there shouldn't be anything happening up there, so the fact eclipse is happening is of a big deal.
Maybe
it's a bad thing. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. We'll see, I guess. And that's the perfect time to bring back the Moon Adeptus, who, like I said, there's a lot of lore in game about her, the Bamboo Forest. It's going to be interesting to see how she, you know, her lore in game, yada yada, what she does in terms of the narrative. I'm looking forward to seeing it. And again, Lantern Rite is just Lantern Rite. That's the New Year's event. They always give us a ton of stuff and rewards and most profitable time of the year if you're a free-to-play player, is just what I'm going to say there. Which, on the topic of events and New Year's and Lantern Rite, apparently we're also going to be getting an actual, like, kind of like what we have in Star Rail and ZZZ, where we're going to actually have permanent events in-game now, so that's going to be a thing. So if you miss the main, like, narrative of Lantern Rite, it's just going to be there in the game now permanently, so you can just always play her story. So if you're a new player coming into Genshin and you're like, shoot, I just got past Liyue, or just got past it to Inazuma, or I just started in Mondstadt, don't worry, you'll get there. It's going to be in the game. Maybe not all of Lantern Rite, but you're definitely going to get the story part of this, so that's good. I believe they're also doing it for what they did in Natlan, for that whole theme park area that I can't remember. So it's interesting to see them finally having, like, permanent events that they're going to have in-game. So it'll be good. Especially considering that they said that Horse Girl's story... I keep feeling weird saying Horse Girl, but again, you know... is going to be very much tied into the story of that Lantern Rite, so... Makes sense that they have that, because it's going to be kind of like an event and a character story all wrapped up into one. So, like I said, it's going to be nice to see them adding permanent events. Whether this is retroactive, probably not, but... We do know, thanks to the little thing they showed in the special program, that at the very least, the theme park is going to be on there, and the Lantern Rite, so... Or this year's Lantern Rite, anyway, so... You know, progress, right? We're probably finally going to start getting permanent in-game events. Which, hey, that's great, honestly. I always thought that was kind of one of the things that Star Rail and ZZ had that Genshin really should have. Not all events, mind you, because not all events are major enough to warrant that, but like, there are certain events, again, in Star Rail and ZZ as well, where there's a lot of lore in there and story implications and just stuff that comes from them, and it feels weird to just have that there one day and gone the next. Granted, Star Rail, or Genshin, I mean, originally worked around it by having your character kind of act differently based on if you participated in the event or not and learn the stuff that came from it, but depending on what you do with that event, like I said, if you tie a whole character story quest to it, it feels weird to just not know them when you should, so narratively, it's just easier to write, I guess. Which, speaking of narrative, I think that's a great segue. Let's go over into the other thing that we kind of got teased maybe possibly happening, and that is an in-game cinematics theater possibly coming to Genshin finally. We might actually finally be able to start, well, not replay the quest, but at least replay the cinematics for the quest and get, like, just kind of refreshes on the story up until this point. Like, they teased allowing us to see the, the scene when the Doctor first introduced himself way back in Sumeru and that crazy cutscene, so it'll be interesting. We're finally getting a cutscene theater, for lack of a better term, in Genshin. They actually only recently implemented that in Star Rail. They had that in ZZ since the beginning, which I think was a really good idea. Because, like I said, there are certain story beats, especially if you put down the game for a little while and you pick back the game up, you're like, shoot, what was the plot of the game? I don't bloody remember. So you're either left
again.
Yeah, you're either sitting there being like, okay, I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to nod along and pretend I understand. Or you go the other route and you look up a YouTube thing and you read all that again, which, I mean, sure, but it would be nice to have all that in the game itself. So, again, like I said recently, Star Rail implemented that feature. They had a kind of recap thing for a while, but now you can replay the quests and the cutscenes. And now, at least in the case of the cutscenes, Genshin is adding that as well. So, yeah, we can actually start getting the recap of the story so people can actually, remember what the hell's going on if they put the game down for an extended period of time, which is good, considering Nodcry was all originally about, catching everyone up in the narrative. Because remember, before Nodcry existed, before like a few expansions or a few versions before Nodcry came out, we were actually supposed to be in Snezhnaya by this point. We were supposed to be wrapping up the whole Saritsa plot at this point. But to make a long story short, the creators kind of sat there and were like, nobody's really paying attention to the story or really knows the story. That's kind of the side tangent I'll allow myself to get into at this point. And that's kind of always been Genshin's biggest strength and also biggest flaw, but also problem, is that much like Doom or Dark Souls, or especially Dark Souls, there's a ton of backstory in Genshin that delves into, like, Fane, Celestia, the Primordial One, which may or may not be the same person, the Heavenly Principles, the Three Moons of Teyvat, yada yada yada. All that important world-building lore and stuff for Genshin that was kind of teeing off kind of future plot points, maybe. But all of that is in completely collectible, optional lore that's buried in side quests, which are themselves optional. So, if you're only playing the Archon quest or the World quest effectively, yeah, you're only really getting the story of the nations and, Teyvat and the world building around that, but all the story about Celestia and the Fanes and the relationship between Fanes and the Moons and, how they're, Fanes is the Primordial One and da-da-da-da-da, all that. You don't get that. Like, here, let me give you a good example. Up until Nodcry, which got us the second biggest bit of crucial reading for the lore community, which is Hymns of the Far North, there was originally, for the longest time, and still very much is, another piece of central reading, which is called Beyond Sun and Moon. To make a long story short, it's basically Teyvat's oldest and only really to this day Genesis story of Teyvat. It tells us Fanes' origins, maybe tells us how he came to Teyvat, the war with the dragons, yada yada yada. Guess where you find this? Well, it's basically a paragraph of lore that you get from a book. How do you get this book? Well, you find it after completing a quest in Enconomia, a side quest in Enconomia. What's Enconomia? Great US! It's an optional area that is completely hidden from you unless you complete another optional side quest in Inazuma. So, the biggest piece of core reading for the story of Genshin for years, because this has been in the game since Inazuma, so year 2 or 3, depending on how you count the years in Genshin, has been in the game, and the only way to get in that bit of lore, the only way to read that bit of lore, is to go to Enconomia, which requires you to play an optional side quest, which you can easily miss, unlock Enconomia, and then in Enconomia, play another optional side quest, which I don't remember if you have to play it for the quest line or not. Let's say you don't. Which then allows you to unlock Sun and Moon, which tells you all the origin story stuff. And that's how you get the core piece of reading. It's buried within a subquest's subquest, effectively. So, yeah, now you kind of see why at the beginning I was saying that coming up to Snezhnaya, the developers were like, hold on a minute. Not everyone knows the core reading. Because if you know the core readings, you know that Snezhnaya isn't really being set up as the big bad, nor is the Tsaritsa. It's Celestia, Fanes, all that stuff. Of which you would know nothing about unless you know the core readings, and thus the problem and the point here. So they created Nodcryth, saying, okay, we're just going to create a whole region that's just dedicated to telling you about the stuff going on in basically the story. Going to tell you about Celestia somewhat. We're going to tell you about the moons and the Moon Sisters and all that stuff, and the War with the Dragons, and yada yada yada. Which again, so far, nothing in Nodcry has pretty much been said that has been revolutionary. I mean, we got Hymns of the Far North, which is revolutionary, sure, but that's more for Snezhnaya, neither here nor there. And we were going to be there anyway at this point. But in terms of the actual deep story with Celestia and whatnot, nothing they've said has really contradicted anything or has blown anything out of the water. It's more just them actually straight up telling us things that, again, the deep lore has already been telling us for a long time, and actually providing more clarity. Like we know now what the Moon Sisters' relationship was like with their creator Nibelung, the Dragon King, and what ended up resulting in them going to war with Fanes, or yada 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 yada. Like stuff that's nice to get clarity on. So yeah, that's why Nodcry exists. So, all in all, I think a lot of the stuff that we're getting with this expansion is really interesting. Very much possible origin story of the twins, or singular twin. I say that because if you follow the deep lore, or at the very least the lore YouTubers, you know there's a lot of people who are saying that the twins might not actually be twins, and that the other sibling might be fake, and yada yada yada. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in the Genshin lore community, alright? There's maybe a reason a lot of people don't go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, that's kind of the special program in a nutshell, more or less, unless I've missed anything, which I don't think I have. Like I said, events with lantern rites, yada yada yada. There's a few small things I'm missing here and there, like Yao Yao outfit, but you know, Yao Yao in an outfit's always nice. Yao Yao in an outfit's always nice. And Nervalet getting an outfit, which apparently is a gift from the Melazines, which, oh my god, he looks so good in it. I don't invest in fashion though, so I'm probably not getting it. So, yeah, that's kind of it for Lunar 4. Anything to say, Justin? I've been rambling for like 17 minutes straight.
Nah, you're good.
This isn't his area of expertise, so he's
No.
just letting me go.
I have no idea on this game. I only really know Zenless.
Yeah, if we talk about that, then we might have a full discussion here. But in this case, it's just me rambling into the mic. But hey, it's a happier, I guess, topic than, you know, pointing my finger and waggling at Nintendo going, bad Nintendo. So, yeah, that's the show. Hope you all enjoyed. Hope you all found it interesting. And oh, yeah, Happy New Year. It's technically December 2nd as of this recording. So,
Yes.
or December 2nd, January 2nd. Goodness gracious.
It is December. It is 2026 of December already. A full year is gone.
A full year has passed in the span of 2 days. We're in a time loop. Blame Ishtaroth. Oh, Genshin jokes that probably never land. I will never be ashamed of them. So yeah, have a happy new. Well, hope you've had a happy new year, and yeah, let's hope 2026 is better in gaming than last year. Oh boy. And that's the show. Bye bye, everybody.
Have a good one.